Hello everyone, it's Movie Mike here, and today I'm going to tell you about the movie, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Being the journalist and co-owner of Millennium magazine, Mikael Blomkvist is going through hard times. Because of the article he published, the court accused him of slandering the businessman, Wennerström. The journalist relied on unverified facts, so he'll have to pay a pretty penny and end up with his bankruptcy. Meanwhile, professional hacker Lisbeth Salander has been tasked by Mr. Wanger to compile a detailed dossier on Blomkvist. According to her assessment, Blomkvist is deemed to be clean and honest. Sneaking into Wennerström's house unnoticed and gaining illegal access to his computer is a no-brainer task for her. One fine day, Blomkvist gets an unexpected invitation to visit from none other than Wanger himself, the very person who had instructed Lisbeth to compile a dossier on the journalist. 40 years ago, tragedy struck when Harriet, the granddaughter of his own brother, mysteriously disappeared. It became evident that someone from within their circle had played a part in her vanishing act. Merely 16 years old at the time, she went missing on a day when the entire family had gathered on the island. Coincidentally, a vibrant parade was taking place in the town that day, which Harriet and her friends also attended. Upon her return, she tried to talk to Wanger, but being busy, he asked her to wait. In an unfortunate twist of events, an accident occurred on the bridge, causing everyone in the house to rush to the scene. Regrettably, Henrik never had the opportunity to speak with Harriet. As the evening unfolded, her absence became conspicuous during dinner, and the following morning brought no trace of her presence, leaving everyone baffled. Taking into account that all the boats remained in place, it becomes obvious that she couldn't have used the one. Moreover, considering the feeble current of the river, drowning seems equally unlikely, as her body would have surely been recovered. In light of these facts, Henrik concludes that someone on the island must have killed her. This person also knew about Harriet's habit of giving dried flowers in a frame to Mr. Wanger on his birthday. Surprisingly, even after Harriet's death, someone continues to give these gifts. So, Wanger offers the journalist to go live on the island and help find Harriet's killer. As payment for his services, he will receive a fee and proof of Wennerström's guilt. The journalist accepts the deal. Upon receiving the case file, Blomkvist envisioned the sequence of events on the day of the disappearance. The police officer assigned to the case arrived at the scene by boat and meticulously examined it. The officer then coordinated search parties to scour both the water and the land in search of the missing girl. However, despite their exhaustive efforts, they were unable to find any trace of her. In the girl's room, they discovered her notebook. The officer also examined it, but to no avail. The journalist took particular interest in the final page containing names and numbers. According to the officer, they were outdated phone numbers. Meanwhile, Lisbeth survives her guardian's hospitalization with a stroke and the subsequent appointment of a new one. However, this new guardian perceives Lisbeth as his possession and believes he has the right to mistreat her. Consequently, he asserts control over every aspect of her life, including her movements and bank account. Mikael becomes more acquainted with the family, particularly Martin, the brother of the missing girl. According to Martin, Harriet's death has had a profound impact on the family business, completely shattering Henrik's ambitions. Martin was not on the island on the day of his sister's disappearance, arriving there only the next day. Cousin Cecilia, trying to help the investigation, advises to talk to Anita, Harriet's own sister. Lisbeth's laptop is stolen while she is on the subway, leaving her in need of a new one. However, as her guardian holds control over all her finances, she is forced to approach him for assistance. He agrees to provide her with the necessary funds, but demands a favor in return. To her deep disgust, he forces her into intimacy. She endures this silently, and then rushes to the bathroom to vomit. Despite this ordeal, she manages to collect the check and promptly departs. Eventually, the journalist locates Anita, who has been out of touch with her family for over 20 years because of her irresponsible parents. She resided with her mentally unstable mother and alcoholic father. Anita believes that Harriet was lost. The disappeared girl was strikingly different from her family. She devoted herself to studying the Bible despite her family's lack of religious inclination. Lisbeth finds herself in need of money once more, which forces her to turn to her guardian again. This time, the perverted guard demands that Lisbeth visit his home, where he handcuffs her to a bed and rapes her. Helpless Lisbeth has no choice but to scream until she eventually falls silent. Collecting her courage, she takes the check and leaves, trying to forget this and the previous meeting. Mikael comes across some old photos from that very day, although their quality is noticeably poor. Determined to discover the location where the pictures were taken, he eventually stumbles upon an archive containing photographs from the parade. Meanwhile, Lisbeth pays another visit to her guardian. Ever since the first incident at the office, she has devised a plan. Carelessly, the guardian lets her in. Taking advantage of the situation, Lisbeth strikes the pervert with a stun gun and proceeds to tie him to the bed. Now he can experience the same pain she endured. The last time she was in this very room, Lisbeth discreetly recorded the pervert's abhorrent actions using a button camera. Now, driven by a thirst for revenge, Lisbeth has returned. Now, he will not soon stop feeling pain every time he sits down. The tattoo on his chest will serve as a permanent reminder of who he is. Should he dare to retaliate, the incriminating video will be unleashed on the internet, sealing his fate. Mikael peruses the photos taken during the parade and discerns a significant shift in the girl's facial expression. Her usual smile gives way to an expression of fear. Recalling the notebook filled with numbers, Mikael draws a connection to the Bible. Blomkvist deciphers a name from the list, and to his astonishment discovers that the same name was associated with the case of the missing Harriet. It becomes evident that the girl met a gruesome fate, precisely as described in the biblical message. Henrik ends up in the hospital, currently in intensive care, and his chances of survival remain uncertain. The fate of the journalist also depends on this, so he does not dare to reveal what he managed to find out. Instead, he seeks help and asks for an assistant. Dirk suggests Lisbeth, as she has been compiling a dossier on the journalist. Mikael pays a visit to Lisbeth, but the girl, clearly still affected by a challenging night, isn't so much pleased with it. She pretends not to know who he is. Naturally, Blomkvist feels resentful about illegally obtaining information about him. However, Lisbeth is a real professional, and he needs her help. Mikael is firmly convinced that Harriet is the victim of a serial killer. Eventually, Lisbeth agrees to help the journalist in his pursuit. Lisbeth searches for information about the missing girls at various police stations and on the internet. She discovers 10 alleged victims, 5 of whom were on Harriet's list. What's more, they all have Jewish names, and it turns out that the Vanger family are anti-Semites. Evidently, Harriet was also investigating this maniac. While revisiting photos from the parade, the journalist notices a carpenter's car, raising the possibility that he might have witnessed something significant. However, it is revealed that he passed away a long time ago. Nonetheless, his widow assists the journalist in locating the photos taken on that day. It turns out that she was capturing footage from behind Harriet's back. These photos may hold clues about the man Harriet feared. The journalist eventually finds the right shot, but the identity of the potential killer within the crowd remains unclear. Blomkvist continues to delve into the family's past as he wanders around the island, exploring the location where Harriet's father died and his abandoned house. However, his walk is abruptly interrupted by a gunshot, which lightly grazes the journalist. Frightened, he quickly retreats to his cabin. Lisbeth assists him in stitching up the wound, and they spend the night together. The journalist has collected almost all the data on the case. The only thing missing is Wanger's company documentation. Martin gives the go-ahead. Lisbeth searches the company archives for information in order to uncover the corporation's connection to the cities where the women disappeared. Meanwhile, a journalist notices a man with a camera in pictures taken from the bridge. It turns out to be Harold, yet another one of Henrik's brothers. In the archives, the journalist discovers photos from the search for the girl, one of which shows Martin wearing a blazer adorned with a school badge. It is this badge that captures Blomkvist's attention. Lisbeth examines the notes and uncovers a link between Martin's father and the murdered girls. It appears that the corporation had been acquiring subsidiaries in the very same cities where the missing girls were employed. However, there is a discrepancy regarding the last victim. The girl died in 67 and Gottfried drowned in 65. To test his theory, Mikael visits Martin's house and finds that he's not at home. Seizing the opportunity, he decides to enter. Exploring the rooms, the journalist makes a startling discovery: rifles. This could very well be the same one used to shoot the journalist. Just as this realization hits him, Martin's car pulls up to the house. Panic sets in, and the journalist frantically searches for a hiding spot. He successfully escapes the house, but Martin notices him and invites him to go inside. Mikael is certain that Martin had nothing to do with Harriet's disappearance. Neither could his father, as he was already deceased. What if nobody killed Harriet at all? Mikael decides to approach Anita once more. He visits her workplace and straightforwardly confesses that Martin had tortured him before his death. To his surprise, the woman surrenders. She is not Anita at all, but Harriet. Anita had secretly married and changed her name, keeping it hidden from her family. Harriet experienced a difficult childhood. Her father had been raping her since she was 14, and after her father died, Martin took over. The girl told her mother, but she did nothing, and Harriet was afraid to tell Henrik. Finally, she had killed her father. One day, Harold decided to mock his daughter, but she managed to escape. She ran to the pier, with Harold chasing after her. Harriet hit him on the head with an oar, causing him to fall into the river. Martin witnessed the entire incident, and one rapist replaced the other. When Henrik sent Martin to a private school, Harriet experienced some quiet days. However, when she saw Martin at the parade, the girl realized that the nightmare would never end unless she could escape. Fortunately, Anita helped her by driving her away in the trunk of her car. The mystery had been solved, and all that was left was to report back to Henrik. He had survived the operation well. The old man handed the hero a folder containing information on Wennerstrom, and in return, Mikael didn't just tell Harriet's story, but he also brought her home to Henrik. The file on Wennerstrom contains outdated information. The businessman had built his company using stolen funds, but that occurred 35 years ago, making him immune to prosecution. However, Lisbeth can still assist in this matter. The girl possesses access to Wennerstrom's computer, accountant, and lawyer. So now Mikael knows that the businessman is involved in money laundering through drug and weapon sales. The journalist is currently drafting an exposé, with hopes of bringing the scoundrel to justice. It is also possible to leave him with no money, which is exactly what Lisbeth does. She borrows $50,000 from Mikael and transforms herself into a well-groomed blonde, dressed in fancy clothes. With a fake passport, the hacker successfully clears Wennerstrom's accounts, leaving the businessman penniless. However, this was not the worst thing for him, as he was soon found dead. As for Mikael and Lisbeth's relationship, it doesn't work out as expected. Lisbeth gives him the money and even prepares a Christmas present for him. However, Mikael appears to be content without her, so he throws the gift in the trash can. This causes Lisbeth to distance herself from Mikael's life and move on. And that wraps up our story. Thank you for watching until the end. We appreciate your support through your likes and comments. It means a lot to us and motivates us to continue creating content for you. Thank you, friends, and we'll catch you in the next video.